You not want to be a superstar, huh? Such wee characters. Well, aren't we here today with something just incredibly special? In my opinion, the last of a very certain type of car. You may be thinking it looks quite raised up just now. It's because it's got nose lift on. This right here is probably a dream car for many in the world. It is extremely iconic. This right here is a 2018 Aventador LP 740 S Roadster, right? Long name. What they do is they charge you about 100 grand per letter in the name, and then that's when you get this. Now this car is in some ways magical, in some ways mental, in some ways really bloody annoying, but you can't help but just stop and be in awe of this vehicle and just look at the white details and the satin black. Satin black for me in this car is just absolutely exceptional. For those of you that know me, I've had gold cars, pink cars, blue cars, you name it. I have every wacky colour under the sun in my life, but there's something so special about an Aventador in matte black. So let's talk a little bit for a second on the technical specifications of the car now, of the car. Now, when you see Lamborghinis with LP followed by a number, that number is normally indicative of the power that this car has. So the LP 740 on the Aventador means it has around about 740 horsepower. This will do in the region of 220 miles per hour. I haven't done that, so I wouldn't know. And it has a 7-speed, single clutch automatic gearbox. That is one of the, not the problems of the Aventador, it's the technology that was available at the time. Even this is 2018, and in 2018, for example, same year that my McLaren that I sold earlier in the year was manufactured, the Aventador originally came around in 2012. That's when that car was released. It was released to replace the Lamborghini Murcielago, and now the Aventador has been followed up by the new Lamborghini Revuelto, which is great and shit, I think. It's a V12, but it's a hybrid, it's 1,000 horsepower, it's pretty cool. But this car's just, I don't know how to say it, Zane, I don't know how to say it. It's just got that thing. It has just got that thing. So let's have a look around the car in a little bit more detail. Now, if you've watched the review of the Lamborghini Urus that I've done on my channel, believe it or not, this car is owned by the same guy, my mate, business partner, Paul McFadden, and we're here again at the lovely Glen Eagles Hotel to review this car. The reason being is Paul stays 2 minutes away. We're not that upper sales that we drive to Glen Eagles to review a car. His house is 2 seconds away, so we come down here so it's a little bit easier. Now, you'll remember that I made the point that the front of the Urus is so similar to the Aventador minus the profile. Like, you look at the Urus, and if you imagine that's underneath the car, it's got quite a pitched bonnet because it's an SUV. This has got quite a thin bonnet and thin front end because of the aerodynamics that are required for a car like this to go as fast as it does. But you'll understand what I was saying here when I'm talking about the shape along the line here of the bonnet latch and the shape of the front here. They have clear similarities, these cars, that set them apart from the Huracan, set them apart from previous Lamborghinis like your Gallardos, your Murcielagos, even your mad Lamborghinis like your Reventons and your Lamborghini Sians. This and the Urus have got some similar design features. You look at this car and you think straight away, it's a lot simpler than the Urus. The Urus had a lot of, honeycomb grille. We only have a little tiny bit of that down here. And remember, every single thing on this car is not here for design. You know, when we're looking at the Urus and they've got the almost like false carbon vents on the side that don't actually go anywhere. This car, being a massive V12, it gets very hot. It's very, very high power, produces extremely high torque as well. All the air intakes on this car are absolutely for a reason. It's a rear-engined car. We're able to see a nice little shot over the back there, and it's a fully exposed piece of carbon that covers the engine there to let more air in and keep that engine cool. So none of this is just mucking about for fun. All of this is for a reason. So you look and you'll see, oh Richard, I'm seeing less carbon, seeing less design, less honeycomb grille. I even look at the lights, and the lights are a lot simpler. We've got like a handful of LED modules and a larger LED module. Remember that a lot of the technology in this vehicle, as much as the 2018 S Roadster is pretty much the last run of this type of Aventador. Yes, they made some SVJs and stuff up until as late as last year, but the SVJ is just, you get the S, the SV and the SVJ. Not to say that this is by any means down the bottom of any people's, car collection pile, but the SVJ is just ridiculous. A very track-focused version of this car, if this already wasn't harsh enough to drive. Now, you see it's got very simple sensor setup. This has not got, active braking for being too close to people. This has not got, a super complex cruise control system, because a lot of this car is 2012 tech. You see this inside the interior. The interior's absolutely beautiful, but then you look at the screen and you're like, whoa, that's pretty crazy how this screen is in. Ultimately, I was with Paul the day that he picked this up. I took him to go and get it. I know exactly what he paid for this. The number starts with a 3 and the rest starts with £100,000. If you put that together, you'll probably get an idea of what kind of price one of these cars fetches. They've held their value incredibly well. Now, I think that this car is going to be one of these cars that's going to look timeless in 30, 40 years' time. Other examples of cars like that is like the BMW i8. I think the i8 is always going to look futuristic. I had one for a couple of years. It was absolutely awesome. But this car, I think, is never, ever going to go out of fashion. Give it an outdated media screen. It's not even got Bluetooth. Like, who cares about any of that stuff? What we care about in this car is the noise of an exceptional V12. So let's have a look at the wheels and the side profile of the car just now. So if you remember from other reviews, I'm quite big on looking at the size of brakes. All the way from my old X3M competition, which has some pretty good stopping power on it, but not that crazy, through to the carbon ceramics on my McLaren, to the carbon ceramics that are on the Lamborghini Urus, and always talk about, look at the size of these brakes, these discs, these pads, these calipers. It's absolutely insane. I think this might take the cake, right? We look down here, we've got this incredible carbon ceramic brake setup here, right? I really like, the white accents around this car give it a very Tron kind of feel, if that makes sense. We look here, we've got the silver calipers. These discs, I don't know what unit of measurement, minus actual feet and inches, I could use to try and help you guys watching this to understand truly how big these are. I mean, the wheels themselves are not crazy huge. The wheels are 20s, right? But look at how little space. I mean, that is how much space. That there is about an inch and a half between the disc and the actual exterior of the wheel, showing that a car like this, ultimately, that's running horsepower like this and can reach speeds as high as this can, it's going to need some extremely serious stopping power. Now, you may be thinking, Richard, it's a roadster. Why have you not got the roof off? How does the roof come off? Is it easy? Is it simple? No, it's not simple whatsoever. This roof comes off in 2 parts, right? So it unclips and you've got latches in here and you take this part off and you open the front bonnet and you slide it in, it sits a certain way, and then you get the other one that sits in and it has to sit perfectly, and if it doesn't, you can't shut the front bonnet latch and all this kind of stuff. Me and Paul figured this out the extremely hard way when picking this car up from Amari Supercars the day that he got it. I do not have the desire, the patience, any of that stuff to actually take the roof off this car. To be totally honest, it's extremely difficult. And again, it is Scotland. As much as it's an absolutely beautiful day, you look up there, there's some clouds in the sky. Is there a chance it could start raining? Yeah. I don't want to be the guy accidentally ruining my mate's Alcantara interior, trying to fire the top parts back onto the roof to make sure that the car is watertight. That's not going to be me personally. You also notice how many air vents we've got around here. Like, there's a really considerable amount of air vents, a massive intake here, right into this huge radiator. This is one thing that I found so interesting about supercars. Like, when I owned my McLaren, finding out that that car had 7 different radiators. A super complex cooling system, which this will have as well. I was looking up the technical specifications of this car. Nowhere, including the Lamborghini website, actually gave a breakdown of the cooling specifications. Probably because it's such a complex system to keep this car and the parts that need to be cooled as cool as possible. It's going to be a really, really hard job. So the engineers have done something incredible pulling that together. It's got a big radiator in here. You look inside and we've got all this forced air induction. It's amazing how we have all this mad technology when it comes to cars, planes, motorbikes, all these different things. And there's something just about basic physics and forced air induction that does so much for a car like this. Like, it's got such a complex fueling system. I'll talk about the way it selects cylinders when you're not driving it hard, so it drives as a V6 to protect the engine. Like, it's such an intelligent piece of kit that can do such amazing things. But to help this car run as best as possible, someone went, oh, do you know what this car needs? Air. Something that we've got all over the world. force going forward, air dragging into the car. That is going to make this like hundreds of £1,000 car that goes mega fast perform even better. It's absolutely insane. You just look at the design of this car and it is a Batmobile. Like, and I'm not a huge fan of Batman either, right? So I'm not saying this like with a total like rager for Batman, but I look at this and you just look at the design. It's almost like, this is going to sound offensive to the Aventador, but it's like an exoskeleton of a really cool Beetle. That's a very weird way to put it, right? But just the design of this here, it looks like something that is just unbreakable, untouchable, immovable whatsoever. All the forced air, the radiators in here, cooling down the back end of the car, because ultimately, Zane's going to get run over. Ultimately, we've got this huge engine in the back, 6.5 litre V12. It's massive. It's absolutely huge. Now you can see from the rear of the car, the design's actually really similar to the front. It's got this kind of triangular, quite sharp angles. I also feel bad that I didn't take the car to get it washed. Probably should have done that, but I haven't. So if you think Paul is being a jakey with his car, that's not the case. It's been away at Lamborghini getting some different work done and a service, of which it was very expensive. Now, we do have one little piece of modern luxury and modern technology. What is that, you might ask? We've got the great gift of a reversing camera just under here. Now, when I show sausages, yes, I just lost mine a couple of weeks ago. So when I see them, it makes me so happy. Doubled apple? Yes. You might not be interested in me though. Oh, you are a little bit. Hi. I had a little dapple boy. Hi. Yeah. And thank you. Thanks. It's got what's called satin PPF. So underneath it's gloss black, just like a normal shiny black. But then you put a paint protection film over it so that stone chips don't damage it, and it gives it a matte finish. Anytime I see sausage dogs, I just get so bloody happy. And sad, but happy mostly. So, one of the things I love about the back end of the Aventador, minus how the angles are very similar to the front, is I love these lights. It's like a kind of inverted arrow almost. I don't quite know how to say it. It's like an arrow if the point wasn't pointing out the way, it was pointing in the way. And when these are lit up and you're actually driving, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Now, one thing that I would love for this car to have had is, obviously we've got this incredible centre 3-exit exhaust here, but one of the F1 style rain brake lights, I think on this car would have been absolutely exceptional. We've got the normal brake lights and then a very thin brake light across here. And I forgot to actually finish my point before I got excited about the dogs. On the reversing camera, I think they used Sony Ericsson CyberShot technology on this, right? So it's not the greatest reversing camera ever just because of the age of the tech that's in it. But I genuinely don't know if I could drive this car without one. It is so difficult to drive. It is so wide. Your view is so tiny. Look at how tiny the little window is there. There's really not much to be able to see and navigate with when it comes to this car, which makes it, in my opinion, almost impossible as a daily driver. Like, even in summer, if you had a scorching hot summer, you lived somewhere with an incredible climate, you really couldn't drive this every single day. It would be super difficult. Now, one thing I want to know is Paul's incredible plate here, right? You'd be thinking, Richard, PR0736E, what is this all about? Spells out protege. You can see down here, Paul McFadden Wealth. That's Paul's property training business. So if you're someone who's interested in investing in property, learning how to invest in property, building a new business, accelerating your income, all that kind of stuff, feel free to drop down into the links below in the bio of this video on YouTube. You'll be able to find out more information about what Paul actually does and how you can potentially work with him as well. Going back to that triple centre exit exhaust, this must be the biggest exhaust I've ever seen in my life, right? Like, truly the biggest. And I've seen some nice cars, you know, Zondas and different things like that. Paul's neighbour actually has a Zonda, it's absolutely beautiful. But that exhaust there, the sheer size of it is just absolutely ridiculous. The diffuser is so simple. I actually don't know how much of this is carbon. You do see some carbon when you lift the doors and stuff, there's some carbon in there. I don't know how much of this is carbon. I would imagine quite a lot of it is carbon. But it's just got this matte black finish with the white. It's just super, super simple. You look at a car like this and it's got so much going on in one hand and so little and it's so simple on the other hand. So why don't we take it out for a drive now? But first, how do the doors open, Zane? I heard you asking that there. I heard you thinking that there, Richard. How do the doors open? Of course. as we used to call them when we were wee guys,
Lambo doors.
unreal. Carbon fibre the whole way around. So this is a carbon tub inside this car. Let's jump in, let's drive the Aventador and see what it's like in this V12. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that the Aventador is an easy drive. It's a really, really difficult drive. It's very low to the ground. It's got extremely low visibility. The car is very, very wide. Like, this car is for experienced drivers only. Right now, I'm driving it in manual mode, and I'll explain why I'm driving it in manual mode in a second, because there is complete 100% logic as to why I do this. So I've opened the back window here in the Aventador. The little window's just cracked open. To hear more of the car, yes, you might hear less of me. We might have to edit the audio a little bit more, but just to hear the life of one of the most incredible V12 engines that has ever been made in history, I think it's worth it just for a little bit of audio disruption. Now, you'll see inside the Aventador we've got a distinct lack of tech. We have got no touchscreen, no Bluetooth, no even modern commodities that you would take for granted, like, oh, someone with a really nice SVR, sweet, same as mine, except green, British Racing green, but still carbon edition, beautiful. Stuff like an active exhaust control button, we don't have that, right? Yeah, no active exhaust button. Like, you find with sports cars and supercars these days, they've got like 40 different driving modes. You know, you've got all these different race settings and this and that. This has got Strada, Sport and Corsa. That's it. And Ego if you want to set your own settings, but doesn't make it any more capable. Like, this car, they've kept it so simple. Even you look at the steering wheel, like, this doesn't look like a steering wheel you'd expect to get in a £300,000 car, because at the base of what this car is about, it's about the exceptional V12 that's in it and the noise that comes from that car. I mean, this car runs as a 6-cylinder when you're just driving casually. Has a little sign that you can see that shows which side of the engine it's running on, and just when you touch it, the V12 just comes to life, right? That's why I need that back window down, because it sounds so bloody good. Like, so good. When you're just driving this car casually and slowly, it runs on the 6 cylinders. It's an amazing bit of technology. It alternates between which 6 cylinders it's doing it with, so that ultimately you're not wearing down one side of the engine more than the other. But this car, just even in its most standard mode, the noise that comes off of it, I guess we're not driving a Fiesta ST, you know, it's like a... This is hypercars before hypercars, right, in my opinion. I know we had the Veyron and stuff then, but this is really up there when it comes to automotive technology. Now, the reason I drive this in manual is that if you drive it in auto, every time this changes gear, this is what you would see. The first time I drove this car, I had it in auto mode, I didn't have it in manual, and I changed gear in it, and I thought I'd blown the gearbox. That's how harsh the single clutch automatic is inside of this car. It is so much better, smoother, cleaner to drive this in manual. Let's drop it into Corsa mode for a second. I'm going to drop a couple of gears and I'm just going to do a short little pull, and you'll be able to hear a lot more of what this V12 can get up to. Now, I know we've not even done the sound check yet in this car, right? Sound check's not even done yet. We'll do it in a moment. But it's just that feeling there, like, there is something, this is going to sound so stupid to some people in here, especially if you're not a car person, right? There is something emotional about driving this car. Cars like this aren't going to exist very soon. Like, even the Vuelto now, like, yes, it's a V12, it's got a similar engine to this, it's the next version of the Aventador Murcielago style platform, but we're never going to see a single clutch, automatic, V12 like this with the character that it has in abundance ever again. It's the last of a very certain type of car. We still have our Ferrari V12s, 812 Superfast, even the F12 platform. We've got now with the Purosangue, that's a V12 as well. But it's not an Aventador. That's me just being honest, it is not an Aventador. I was close to buying the 812 Superfast a couple of years ago, and actually less than a couple of years ago, probably a year ago, and having driven this, it just didn't tick the right boxes. Still sounds amazing, especially if you go for Novitec, but this, that's a sound you don't really get anywhere else than the Lamborghini V12 platforms. Yeah, you might look at this car and think, okay, it's not got much in the way of tech, and it's not even got Bluetooth. Like, you can't even play your music. It's got a CD changer beside my leg and 2 slots for an SD card, right? Yes, this has been retrofitted with Apple CarPlay. It's got a cable there. You can plug your phone in and do CarPlay on it. But you're not going to get what you expect for the money in terms of tech, but you're going to get a whole amount of character. There's no one actually here just now. I'm going to do this from a standing start. I'm not launching the car. I don't even know if this car does have launch control. From a standing start. Yeah. Wow. Wow! This car, man. Even in did you feel those gear changes? They're insane. Absolutely insane. Like, even in manual mode, I'm pretty good at getting the revs right, at changing at the right time. Even then, you're boom, boom, the power that's going into changing these gears. And by the way, this car has 4-wheel drive steering. Like, it still has, in terms of engineering prowess, incredible specification. It's just the technical side that's lacking. The dash here, by the way, G-force meter. It still has a G-force meter. Like, stuff that when I first had a shot of, a Porsche for a while, like, I was like, wow, this car's a G-force meter. This car here, 2012 technology, a lot of it still has it, which for me makes the Aventador, not having even broken 100 miles an hour, they're being completely transparent. This is a car that should be on every single petrolhead's bucket list. Is it not that comfy? Absolutely, it's not that comfy. Is the visibility absolutely shit? Yes, the visibility is shit. Does it feel massive to a point where you feel like you can't fit it through certain gaps, so you could probably get a tank through? Yes. Are you not going to be able to answer Bluetooth phone calls? No, you're not. There is so much in this car that you could go and pick up. That Citroen C1 right there would do so much more than this Lamborghini in terms of sitting in the cockpit, what you'd be able to do. But when it comes to being in this car on a summer's day, in Corsa mode, with the flappy paddles going, in your V12, listening to this car, the melody that comes out of this V12, I have to say that there's maybe nothing else quite like it on planet Earth. So I'm going to get spun around up here. We're going to get back to Paul's house, get the car in the garden so we can take it through our ultimate scoring system, you guys know, as the Dick score. We're going to go through the Lamborghini, and by the way, it's going to score like shit on some parts. It's going to score like absolute rubbish on some parts. But then there's going to be other parts that this car scores on that there's many cars on planet Earth wouldn't even be able to tick a box. It's that incredible. So let's get this car spun around quickly. So we're in a very nice neighbourhood just now, so I don't want to do a really aggressive sound check. We're going to do a quick sound check, one blast. I'm sure you've heard a lot of the V12 just from us driving there. So let's get a sound check done quickly, get the car backed up and trickle charged, and we'll be on our way back to Glasgow. Now I'm just getting the trickle charger plugged back in for the Aventador. Because this is not this car's only got like 8,000 miles on it. It's not an everyday driver, even when the weather permits. It's just not possible, especially for someone like Paul who has this car. You've got 3 kids and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not the most usable car in the world. And we'll quickly go through the scoring system just before we head back to Glasgow, right? And I forget the scoring system every time we do it. So I think we do performance, handling, exterior, interior, something like that. I'm just going to score it and tell you what I think about this car. Performance, 8.5 out of 10. The reason I say 8.5 is purely because, and by the way, character, I'm going to score character first, 11 out of 10, right? And that makes up for a lot of the stuff I'm going to say here about performance. I can't say that getting in this car is the same as getting in even a Hurricane Evo. So dual clutch, automatic, it's so much smoother, so much easier to drive. It's not difficult to drive at all. This is hard to drive, but the character makes up for what you lack in performance. I wouldn't say it's a lack, but I have to score this objectively, right? In terms of design and exterior looks, this car still to this day for me is a 10 out of 10. I've never scored anything a 10 out of 10 out of any of the car reviews I've ever done, but the exterior of this car, how it looks and how it performs visually and aesthetically is a solid 10 out of 10. Now, interior, in terms of for a Lamborghini, Lamborghini is normally pretty tight, pretty small. There is a decent amount of knee space for driving. Sometimes I find in Hurricanes, like my knees hit the steering wheel and stuff like that. And I'm like 6 foot tall. I'm not huge. I'm not a big massive guy. So this, in terms of interior space, the seats and how it looks, yeah, it is like a solid 8.5, 9 out of 10. But in terms of interior technical specification, for a car of this price and stuff, yeah, you're going to have to say it's like a 6, right? That's me just being fair. In terms of price, do I think this car's ridiculously expensive? Obviously. Do I think it's worth every single penny? Absolutely, for sure. If you're someone who has the affordability to go and buy an Aventador, and like we can see already side by side with the Urus here, Paul's also got the GLS 63S, he's got a diesel GLS as well, just for any time he needs it as and when. This is not a car that you just have this, right? This is a car that you have alongside many other cars and you drive sometimes. Hence we can see that from the low mileage that's on the car. I think Paul's maybe done 1,000 miles on this car in the time that he's owned it, which has been way over a year. The Aventador across the board is a smash grab home run. It's an incredible vehicle that everyone should try and get a shot of or get a look at. You're not going to see many of them. I think there's only 500 Roadsters in the UK that are, on the road just now or were ever designed, which makes it not only rare, full of character, extremely expensive, but just an incredible sight to behold when you actually are able to see them. So now I'm going to drive back to Glasgow in tears in my crappy little 5 litre supercharged V8, 575 brake horsepower Range Rover SVR. Catch up with you all very soon. Peace.